This show is sponsored by the Comics Shop. We hope you enjoy the show.
Yeah, g'day, mates. Welcome to a very special Tuesday night Chinwag here on the Comics Network, brought to you by the Comics Shop. You can support not only this show, but all the shows and lots of the creators who appear on those shows by going right now, well, after the show maybe, to comics.shop and buy lots of the books there from lots of the creators you see on these very shows. One creator who is on one particular show a lot, but you could argue doesn't get his time in the sun, perhaps. Well, I'm here to shine that sun upon him. Welcome to the show, Leigh Chalker.
Hello, thank you for having me on the show, Spency. It's lovely to be
here. This is weird. Please do us a favor, like, subscribe, click the bell, all that good stuff for the channel. Helps all this stuff grow. Now, before we get started, a few things. This is a live broadcast, and I am an idiot. So take things in the spirit they are intended. I tend to say things, try to be funny, whatnot, and things can come out all kinds of weird ways. But we have a safe word for weird moments such as that. So much so, the power of this word has spread from Chinwag to Drink and Draw and back to Chinwag, and that is pickles. So this is not a gotcha type program, but it is one of honesty and love and creativity. And in as much we can go deep and sometimes too deep, or in directions that maybe one of us doesn't want to go. That's where pickles comes in. So if there's a pickles, there'll be a divergence. You might go, Spency, we were just getting the real dirt out of that one. And I'm like, well, I've spoken to this guy a bit. In some ways, he doesn't even have to say pickles because I can see it on his face. So if we divert from some chunkiness, it's to, keep the show rolling as opposed to having us both crying and vomiting or, both at the same time. Who knows? Lastly, before we get started, I do encourage comments. If I don't click them straight away, bear with me. It's just so we don't derail whatever we're on. You might be asking something that I plan to get to further in the show, but please do feel free. Smash that comments, keep them coming, and we will get to them as we do. For those who don't know, this show is based on 6 words. I can't remember how you say it, but there's 6 prompts. There's prompts, 6 prompts. I had to write them down. Who, what, where, when, how, and why. And those are open for interpretation. For example, Leigh, who?
From my approximate guesses and speaking to my mother at 9:31 p.m. on Wednesday evening, the 9th of the 11th, 1977, under a waning crescent moon at the Townsville General Hospital. This was brought into the world and named Leigh Ernest Chalker. Ernest is my middle name, and it is a family tradition that the son is named after the grandfather of the Chalkers, and it's been going on for a very, very long time, and that's about as traditional as I get. I'm in a transitional phase of my life, coming to 45 and lived a lot of lives, I think, in that 45 years, and going through some changes. I am the culmination of everything I have tried, everything I've failed, everything I've succeeded in, tasted, loved, hated, heard, smelt, touched. I guess every experience I've had has brought me to this, and here I am. So I guess that is. I'm also based myself on a couple of foundational rules these days with my change, and that is my sobriety, my meditation and spiritual practices, my vegetarianism, my creativity, and trying to do my best to live a life of love and kindness and compassion. So for myself and for other people. So that's where I'm at.
Fair to say you've had a little bit of practice hearing the do's and don'ts of the who question over the years, because that was a tremendous who.
Thank you. I don't know. You know what's really weird is I thought to myself today, I was having a cigarette at work, and I was out the back, and I'm a little nervous, because it's like I'm a bit, like it's me here now, so it's a bit tricky, and I thought, he's gonna get me on the who, you know what I mean? Like, and because I hadn't thought about it, man. I always like to listen to other. Well, like that's cool, And yeah. So today, I just I don't know. Like I said to you, my mum earlier today, I just said I have no expectations. I'm just coming in and doing my thing, man. So that was me in a second there. So yeah. So.
I'm depressed to hear you're 45. I thought we were the exact same age.
No, I am 46. It's just my life changed at 45, man. So I think I was
feeling better.
I had a little flashback there, because I don't know, man. I think now people think I'm weird saying this, but that's okay. Hopefully it'll all piece together later on. But I feel like it was when I found sobriety that I realized that there were a few things that made me realize I'd left my old self behind, and I had to go through this transitionary period where there were lots of ups and downs and things. So I am 46, but it was 45 that I recognized that I guess I had to I wasn't quite the person I wanted to be. So so there was a little nudge off to the side to find other things in life, mate. So
fun fact, if you go from my house to a section of the country that I used to actually play shows a fair every now and again, there's a famous road that you drive past all the time called Ernest Wanky Road. Yeah, and so it's just it's not a Melbourne thing. We have Smith Street, High Street, all the regular sort of names, and then just out of nowhere, Ernest Wanky Road. So just like when you said, I think it's actually Ernst Wanky Road, which makes it weirder. And Wanky is Wanke. Don't know what it means. Don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, because we're such a cultured show, mate, for the evening, let's call it Wanke or something like that.
Yeah. I grew up on Patterson Street, which was because it was previously farmland owned by a guy called Patterson, and Mr. Patterson or whatever. The two streets off Patterson Street were Cousin Drive and Leonard Street, because his cousin Leonard lived next door. And so I thought, do they name all roads like this? Because this is freaking great.
Yeah, man, I in a strange way, you're bringing me back to a memory. Last time I was in Gundagai, and I was at the Family First Hotel, and I met a fella called 7 Mile Steve, and
love it.
And he was a nice dude, and had a good old yak to him. And then it was really weird. Went to the bar, and at the corner of the bar, there was another fella. You stand there and you get talking to him, and he called himself 6 Mile Steve, and I was like, okay. What is there a bar full of like Steves with mileage or something going on? Like it sort of baffled me for a bit.
Yeah.
So I went back to my Uncle Pat, and Uncle Pat had been there for a long time, and I said, Pat, what's going on with 7 Mile Steve and 6 Mile Steve? Should I expect, like 2 Mile Steve and that sort of stuff? And he goes, no, that's the two of them. Yeah. And I'm like, why are they called that? And he's like, because 6 Mile Steve lives 6 miles out of town, and 7 Mile Steve lives 7 miles out of town. That's how we tell them apart. And I was like, okay, fair enough. That's cool. I can live with that. So
Yeah.
the colloquialism of these street signs, man, I'm all down with it. We've got some strange ones up here too, man.
Yeah, when I found out that I lived on previously, it was an apple orchard owned by this dude Patterson, and because as I said at the top of the show, I'm an idiot. I was also a child idiot. I heard apple orchard and thought wine cellar. I don't know how I got the two mixed up, but I thought, so there used to be wine cellars all over here. Like, so we'd dig a hole and we could like find a hatch and then there'll be a hole. So me and my buddy, we dug a huge hole, a kid-sized huge hole. But to this day, there's this huge divot in my parents' backyard where, my dad walked out and go, what the hell are you doing? Trying to find an apple orchard. An apple orchard is a row of trees, you freaking idiot.
Oh, dude, we used to have a record store in Townsville, and it was called the Rubber Biscuit. And for years and years,
wicked name.
Yeah. But I kept mucking it up, and I used to keep thinking it was called the Vinyl Cookie. And I'd be telling, I got to head down to the Vinyl Cookie, and they're like, Rubber Biscuit, you idiot. And I'm like, I don't know, like it sells fucking CDs and stuff, So it's like, whatever.
Yeah, we had one near here called the Spinning Crumpet. We didn't.
The Spinning Crumpet, man. That's the best out of all. Why did that not exist?
Yeah. I want to get to as well. I had a few loosen up questions, but I feel like we've accidentally already loosened ourselves. But we're big fans of the band Pearl Jam, you and I, and I got Vitalogy for Christmas when it came out, and my dad read the lyrics. And you remember Spin the Black Circle, and it says, see this needle dropping it down. My dad read that as drug use and was very sort of, Rob. No, Rob. And me being this time a teenage idiot, I was like, oh, sorry, Dad. I didn't even get it until years later. I was going to Spin the Black Circle. And I was like, oh, he's talking about records. Anyway. He's talking about spinning crumpets, this guy.
Yeah, hey. I'll tell you what, that'd be a talent though, spinning crumpets. Imagine 70,000 people rocking up to see some dude spin crumpets. I don't know how entertaining that would be. You'd probably have a mass walkout, but I'd go just for, I saw some dude spin crumpets, but yeah, mate, you keep calling yourself an idiot. I've got it tattooed on my left arm, dude. So just come on now. Don't be too harsh on yourself, all right?
All right.
I'm the dickhead that's got it on my left arm. So
funny because I've got dickhead written on my right arm. So
yeah. we can nudge rub against it. For anyone out there tonight too, there may be a few swear words here because it's like as being a guest, I am going to try and be as authentic as I can. So I do apologize early on for I'm not going to cut sick, but if, sometimes a joke just needs that little bit of an extra, across the line. So it's going to have to be done.
Absolutely. Let's do a quick check-in with the comments before we move on. Nick May, looking forward to some chatter from the conversational connoisseurs. Proud of myself for being able to say that without tripping on it. Got you on while I work. Can't wait. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sis. Can't wait for the conversation between Leigh Lyle and Rob Chalker. Our careers are fairly intertwined, but not that intertwined just yet, I believe.
Yeah, actually, Leigh Lyle's not too bad. Like Leigh Lyle, I'd imagine someone yelling that out,
Gary Challoner, congrats on the 50th. Well done. Thank you. Well, why am I saying thank you? It's not me.
You can say thank you.
Anyway, I'll take it. Congratulations, Leigh. Thanks.
Thank you, mate.
Thanks, Gary. Hi, fellas. Dave, I miss you. How are you? Good evening, gents. Pickle time.
Pickle time.
I don't know what you're up to over there, Pete. Hello to Absinthe Minded.
Absinthe-minded.
Yep, I'll take it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Legendary Leigh Chalker.
Oh, there's me, mate. How are you, bud?
Leigh's been practicing his answers. Throw him a ruddy curveball.
No, I haven't, Nick. I'm telling you, I haven't, man. It's a lie.
You take credit for that one so that we even it out. Yeah. The episode is already amazing. Bloody hell. All right. And then I slowed it down by congratulations on the series milestone. Hell yeah.
Thank you very much, George.
Agreed.
Appreciate that.
Leigh, you are dyslexic because that's the sort of stuff I do.
Could very well be. I don't know. I don't know.
Insane versus idiot. Oh, yeah. That's the because Sis has a tattoo that says insane. Yeah. And then Rusty, of course, gave us a half a percentage or whatever that is.
Yep.
We'll take it. Rusty. Thank you, Rusty. All right. So I'm going to use this as a is it a where? Is it a when? But I want to know, was there any in your family, your mum, your dad, cousins, anybody, was there artists? Has anybody else got that creative spark?
Well, not that I'm aware of on the Chalker side, but on the Macintosh side, which is my mum's side, my mum's handy. She could have been really, really good, but she, being a single mother for a lot of years, obviously had to donate her time into raising me. And so she didn't get a lot of practice to do things and push on, but she was always there when I was doing learning how to draw, and was always encouraging me and stuff. I had plenty of encouragement when it came to artwork. I mean, she still does now to this day. And she's never, she always used to say that if I wasn't drawing for a period of time, there was something wrong, like she could just tell that I was off. And she was usually right, like pretty much 90% of the time. But my grandfather, Eric, my mum's dad, was actually the first artist that I saw. And he went to Papua New Guinea when he was about 17. He couldn't enlist to go over there. They are, mate, the mums are great, Nick. He couldn't enlist because he was too young to go to Papua New Guinea. And he jumped on a train with a group of blokes and shot out to Mount Isa. And at Mount Isa, I can't remember the exact term, but let's say it's like the Army Reserve, and when it was full on coming into Papua New Guinea, the war, they shipped him out, and he stayed over there for 3.5 years. He wouldn't come back. So I don't know why, but he came back. He left Eric Charles McIntosh, and came back known as Duke. And you'd walk down the street and people would be like, Duke, and he'd be like, like never said much. I mean, I'm assuming now, we know like all of the terminology and stuff now would be PTSD and things like that. But when he was over in Papua New Guinea, he spent a lot of time charcoal drawing pilots, soldiers on pieces of paper and stuff like that. He would make sculptures. Like my uncle Stephen actually has. My grandfather found an American mosquito crashed in the jungle, and he took a part of it and spent 2 or 3 years sculpting the part of this plane into the actual mosquito. It's about this big. It's still like my uncle Stephen's got it, and he mounted it on a bullet so it pivots perfectly, right? And that's a family heirloom. And he painted, I don't know where he got the paper from, but big sheets of paper. He loved airplanes. So every aircraft that he saw in Papua New Guinea, he would paint. So there were these huge like decals, I guess, that he kept of like mosquitoes and, you know, like hurricanes and, you know, like B-52s and heaps of stuff. And oh, there was more, man. Like there was so much more, and I didn't know that they existed. And I was with my grandmother. Man, I would have been maybe 4 or 5, and at that stage, Mum was raising me by herself, and my grandmother used to look after me before I went to school. I was very close with my grandma, and yeah, she was going through some stuff, and came across, from memory, a suitcase or two full of this artwork. And I'd seen things like cartoons on TV and you know, Phantom and different things like in newspapers and stuff like that, and Flash Gordon in newspapers and things. But I'd never seen anything like this, and it was like my granddad's fingerprints were on them from the charcoal and stuff like that, and you know, like, and he never talked, man. Like he wouldn't talk about anything. He's very quiet. He was grumpy, but very fair. Like if you know, and he had 5 kids. So obviously, he coming back from the war, pushed off and had to raise kids. You know, so he stopped his art, and they were amazing, man. They were like. Without a doubt, they're the pieces of artwork that that I saw, and man, I was like, wow, like my granddad did this, you know. And he wouldn't talk about it. He never talked to me about him for years, and it wasn't until years later, when my grandma passed away, and the rest of the family were out. They weren't in Townsville. They were all over Australia and stuff doing their varying things. So it was me and Granddad sitting there one night, waiting for the family to come in. You know, I've made all the phone calls. Granddad had glaucoma by that point. You know what I mean? Like, and we'd never been really close. Like I was that scared of him. I used to get my grandmother to ask him if it was all right if I could go and stand near him in the backyard. You know, like, and he loved birds, man. He had aviaries of birds everywhere. Like, just loved me. Go out to the fields and like catch finches and stuff and bring them back, and he'd like breed. And you know, like he's an awesome dude. And he worked on the railroad, man, and had all these railroad building tools, and was one of the dudes building the Burdekin Bridge. Like, man, he was really, you know, like in yeah, he's a pretty amazing dude. And yeah, and that night, for some particular reason, he just I don't know, he just opened up about what all the artwork was, and he could, and the artwork wasn't with us at the time. It had been divvied up and handed out, and you know, like other members of the family and stuff had, you know, got it. And he was just remembering people's names that he'd served, things that he'd seen, like bombers dropping bombs into volcanoes so that they would erupt, so the Japanese wouldn't be able to come across the hills at that stage, so Port Moresby could just get a couple of days of peace. And there were drawings of this jetty that he did, and it was all of his mates. Like they used to, you know, they only had their army gear, I guess, you know, really, and they were like swimming and stuff. And he used to do drawings, like sit back under the trees. He was actually the first person I ever saw with tattoos as well. He had one tattoo here and another one there. One was a palm tree, like a Sailor Jerry, if anyone knows tattoos. He was a Hawaiian, not Hawaiian, but he was an American that lived, like, went to Hawaii and did tattoos. And there, you'd know him. A lot of sailors and stuff have them. And I used to marvel at his tattoos as well. And he designed those, and he had them like needled, like you know, into, you know, like in a tribalistic, I guess, fashion into his arms. And yeah, he was an interesting man. A lot more to him, but obviously, you know, as we get older and things, you know, you become more aware of things. Obviously suffered a lot. I mean, he stayed there 3.5 years. Came back as known as Duke, so I don't know. You got to be doing some stuff over there to do that. And he did artwork while he was there, man, and brought it all back and as sculptures and that. So that was the first guy that I saw and just went, wow, like wow. And so straight after that, being an only child, any piece of paper, any pad I could find, like that was like I was trying to draw airplanes and like and army men and drawing battles, like on paper and like really trying to do things and showing him and you'd get and I don't like like it's and if for me it was like try harder, okay, you know what I mean, like spend another couple of days, grandma, but I guess that that was my prompt to start drawing, and with that, I don't know. I just kept drawing, man. I felt a real comfort in it, being an only child and stuff, and I've always had friends, don't get me wrong, and I've always been in clubs and sport and stuff throughout my life, but I never really, how shall I say, I don't want to sound like a dickhead when I say this, there's not a lot of people in my life that I've ever clicked with. Like I have a very close-knit group of friends that I call them my people, like they're the ones that I like people and I like talking to people, but the people that I can sit down with and talk about, things, they're pretty few. So when there were those moments growing up, I was always drawing, encouraged to. I grew up with my grandma, my mum, my granddad, and 2 other aunts and 2 uncles, Stephen and David and Donna and Janelle. And I suppose when I was drawing, I was like their little brother, their pain in the bum. So it was like they were quite happy for me to be off drawing while they were doing their things. So I was very much left to my own devices and encouraged and found comfort in it, man, which I think is still prevalent today. So that's what
I had both my grandfathers. So one was a full-on painter, would paint landscapes and whatever. He was really quite good, but he was a pretty shit person, and I thought for a spell that's where I got it from. That's where I got being a shit person from. That's where I got art from. But then on the flip, my mum's dad, and he was a dude that was in the war, in the Dutch army and stuff. He came to Australia. He was a printer, and so he did everything like the old school printing was. You had bits of metal on pieces of wood, and you would literally have to get, you wanted to spell your name, you had to get the L and then get the E and then get the I and get the G, get the H, line them all up, and and put whole letters to like a whole paragraphs of stuff that he's doing. And so when I first drew something in front of him, like it was so not his zone. But he worked in the printed image, and so he was kind of like taken aback that I was doing it with pens, if you know what I mean. Like he would sit down and he would watch me, and and I'd notice him and stop, and he'd say, "No, keep going." And then he started. He would, and I took it for granted as a kid, but now I just think how amazing it was. He would get these. Part of his printing was he would make pads, like pads of paper. And so he would get A2 sheets, guillotine them to these, huge, nice A2 sheets, glue them with the glue and bind them all and stuff, and give me these huge drawing pads. And I've still got like 3 or 4 of them filled with drawings from when I was a kid. and just like hundreds, like this thick. Like my mum would tell me to put them away because she'd hurt her back lifting them. Yeah, and I remember like my uncle was a singer during the Vietnam War. That was like he would go from base to base on fucking Tomahawk helicopters and do cabaret singing for the troops. They're hoping for Marilyn Monroe to jump out, and instead it's my uncle going, "If I only knew." My dad didn't have to go because he had pimples on his back. So having a backpack on would have ruptured these pimples. And so when I was a teenager and I had pimples on my back, I was like, well, as much as like I'm never taking my t-shirt off, this is so embarrassing. But if a war breaks out, I'm safe.
I'm laughing.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I understand the acne thing. I had terrible acne when I was in my teenage years, man. Like really, really bad, to the point where like my parents took me to like skin specialists and stuff like that, and I was very self-conscious of it, man. Like very much so. Like lost a lot of confidence with it, and probably wasn't until I was about 17 or 18 that I actually sort of started not to get like cleared up, as they say, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Acne is part of the creative path. There you go, George. When you get those pimples, George, it's like, hey?
Nice.
Thank you, Susan. Good on you, mate. Appreciate that.
Well, speaking of acne and teenage whatevers, I mean, I don't know exactly when this took place, but you'll tell me. Let's talk music for a sec. You playing music. We've talked briefly, mainly when we first met and we both realized we had spent time in bands. Did we sort of talk to each other about it? And we've been like hanging out now, thanks to Shane putting this whole shindig together since 2019 or something. It's like 5 years. It's
long
ridiculous. So tell us about music and a few things, and also like, did you foresee / hope that it would be a career at some point?
All right, let's this is all tied in. So music hugely important to me. Even hello, Ben. Two champs out. Good to hear your story this time, Leigh. Thanks, mate. Good on you, Ben. I grew up in 1972, 1973. My mum and dad met, and they were like 18 years old. And dad came from Gundagai and was a hell of a footballer. This will all work into the music. You'll get it. And because there's a point where the music becomes very prevalent. And dad got injured. He was actually going to be signed to the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles at the time in the NRL back in the very early 70s, and that he was like a 16, 17-year-old rugby league prodigy apparently, and they were hunting him. But dad liked to drink, as did all of the Chalkers. So you can there's a rhythm there, and we were very good at it. And so dad got injured and was going to spend quite a lot of time back in those days recovering. So the contract and stuff got pulled and he couldn't go. So he wanted to get out of Gundagai, which was a small town. So he decided to join the army because most small town guys, he did a few other jobs and things. He worked in a bank, didn't dig it. But dad always had a thing for army, man. Like even when I was young, he was always like army magazines, like he loved it. Like that was a lifestyle for him that he enjoyed. So he moved up to Townsville because we've got Laverack Barracks, which is like the biggest, infantry base in Australia, and might have changed now, but I think it still is. And he met my mother at the Allen Hotel, and my mother's story is dad was singing, dancing on a bar, and she just looked at that dude and went, "Oh, look at that man," and they sang the night away together, and I guess chemistry sort of happened. So Dad, about 3 months later, was getting deployed to Singapore. For whatever reason, it was the Vietnam War was just on the tail end, I think, of things, but Dad didn't get there. He went to Singapore. So Mum decided to basically, I'm going with him. And they at 18 and 19, 17, 18 sort of thing, went to Singapore, and they spent 2-3 years over there. Now, when they were in Singapore, it was not like Singapore is now. There were I've got photos of like very, very different. And they would spend nights with their friends, you know, singing and drinking and always singing. Music was very integral. And there used to be Army radio, and Dad used to sit down. Dad bought himself this big machine, which was like a film reel, like, you know, you'd touch these things, you flip them open, put it down, wind it around this thing, and like so he recorded, mate, so much stuff, right? There were like 30 or 40 like 6-hour reels of music that he recorded from the Army radio. And records, man, just unbelievable amount of records. So by the time I came back, and they're living in Australia, in Townsville, every Saturday and Sunday was music. Like, it was, the real player was going, like, you know, like records were on. There was never any moment without music. And the music was like everything from like Marty Roberts through to like the real early 30s, 40s jazz, sort of like that beat boppy sort of stuff. Frank Sinatra, Creedence, Black Sabbath, you know, like, but the one I remember, the first song that I remember going like, "Hawa," you know, who is that? And it was like,
Wow.
you know, yeah, man, you know, you get that side, it's just doing, you know, and it was David Bowie, and it was Starman, and that's the first song that, wow, right, that's unreal. I love it. So I went on this, I guess, I used to, man, I got into, after David Bowie, and like I was into Black Sabbath, and like Creedence, and like there was just so much stuff. Like I was just gouging, you know. And at that stage, I was reading a lot of comics, because Dad collected comics too. So that was in my mind. I was still drawing and stuff, but music, and I draw, and music was going. It still does to this day. Like always music, always music. And so then I got to maybe about 7 or 8, and Mum and Dad were back together at this stage, and they both realized that maybe I had a thing for music. So they sent me to a classical piano teacher, and I I learned that for about 3 years, I guess, till I was about 10 or 11, to the point where, like, I can read music, and I used to be able to. I can't anymore, but still listening to music at the time. Back in those days, I don't know. I was really caught, man, between music and drawing, you know, and art. So I didn't really give 100% to either one, you know. And then I guess my dad was very sporty. So Dad was very much like, come on, you know, join a cricket team, join a rugby league team. You got to go swimming. So I used to swim during this time too, man. I got trained by like Ian Finlay and Glenn Buchanan, and they were proteges of Laurie Lawrence. And yeah, like I was very busy at this stage growing up. And so sport, music, drawing, you know, school, comics, like I didn't really have much of a life to decide what I wanted to do. I was like a melting pot. So the piano lessons disappeared. You know, I used to have a piano in the house, man. I used to sit there and play piano to Mum and Dad, you know, like learning and shit and singing and that. And so I guess I didn't stop listening to music, but I focused more on drawing because it relaxed me, and comic books and things. And I was very heavy into sport. My dad wanted me to be it'll make sense at the end, but my dad was probably very, God love my dad, but very, how shall I say this politely, never really allowed me to make a choice on what I wanted to do. He pushed in the direction he wanted me to go, which I think was something that possibly he had a loss of when he was a child and couldn't get somewhere, you know what I mean? So I felt a lot of pressure to do things that I wasn't really sure of. So I stopped listening to music and stopped playing music. But then I started listening to more music, and I discovered my own music, like through my uncles, you know, like a lot of early Australian music. I fell in love with like The Cure, REM. Around that late 80s period, I fell in love with English music. So I was a massive like Stone Roses fan, Happy Mondays, and then that went into like the Verve and Suede and like the Wonder Stuff, and they do, George, indeed. And I just started, wow, you know, like this is a whole, you know, and we do it now, but like my mum loved a lot of the music I was listening to. My dad was like, what is that? It's awful. It's not like they used to make it in my day. You know what I mean? And the worst part is I always thought to myself, I'll never be like that. And, you know, now I sit there talking to me, mate, what's this shit? I wouldn't listen to it. You know, like, come on, slap. And, you know, like the weird how the silence go. And so I was really drawing and creating. I was learning to paint, and I was doing lots of things and playing sport. And fast forward through all of this, in school, in high school, I was very close mates with a couple of other guys that didn't quite fit into everything as well, Chris Brightcrews and Michael Plater. And Michael Plater is a successful musician now. He tours and stuff around the place, man. And I do album covers for him, for his charity record label. What Color Is Sound? He puts the money he makes into charities for like saving animals and stuff like that, which I'm more than happy to do. And I'm, you know, and basically I remember the first day he learned guitar lessons, and we used to sit in grade 10, and, you know, like we'd be like, we should start a band, you know what I mean? Like, you know how it is, eh? And we're like, yeah, start a band. I don't know how to play anything. And Bright Cruz was like, I don't know how to play anything. And Michael's like, I can play a chord, man, you know? So we used to like sit in my mum's house and plug this electric guitar into the stereo, like mic input, and man, like blowing speakers everywhere. None of us could sing. None of us could write lyrics. We had no idea. We would just feed back, cranking things, stepping on pedals. We were reading books like, you know, like we didn't even know that microphones existed. We had no idea there was a PA, you know, like we had no idea, man. And we did this for years. And we suddenly realized when we left school, like, you know, like, why don't we have some fun, you know, doing this? We're not getting too bad. And I wasn't playing an instrument at the time, but we were playing like punk, pop, sort of rock and roll music. And I never really considered it, but they started getting really like good. And then I started writing songs, singing with Michael and Chris and that, and we'd spend like hours together, man, for years. That, you know, we would like just, you know, those moments, man, you've been there. And there was something magical about, you know, like just creating noise and sounds, and how we'd talk to each other was like, you know, it needs to be like water, or you need to do that, or bring this back in here, that, you know, bring that chord in, you know, like, you know, and doing stuff. And I think that really started kicking like things into gear for me, you know, like you can create, you know, stuff, not just by yourself, but with people, which came back to me years later with you, you know. And then we got together and we started playing some gigs. And we started going, all right, like, and people were like, hey, like, you guys aren't too bad. And we were like, oh yeah, okay, cool. And I remember our first gig, man, like we rolled in like, it was a free, is that what they call it, James Cook Blues Bar. And it was this real seedy bar on the main nightclub strip of Townsville, and it's not there anymore. And it's now like, some Brazilian fucking, I have it, I don't know, some Chico, fuck, I don't know, you get your nachos or whatever, man, but some upper tosh, posh thing. But it used to be this seedy thing. First night I've walked in there, like, and we're all in like, man, this is Townsville, right? Army garrison town, dudes walking around with mullets and like double, like not just double pluggers, bud, but like there's like no shit. There's like bread, like fucking clips holding people's thongs together and the 4X stubbies that, oh mate, like, like it was wild lands, man. And we rolled in there wearing bell bottoms and fucking hair down to our belts and shit like that, and these dudes are like looking at us and we're like, what the hell are we doing? We never played a gig here. We already think we're a band, and like we got hammered within half hour, man, of like seriously, we just had about 10 beers each, got up and played this gig in front of like, I don't know, man, 10 people at the time. And some dude down the back shooting up in one of the booths that went on the nod, you know what I mean? Like it was a real seedy joint. And that was it. Boom. We were like, oh yeah, that was cool. And so we progressed and got a lot better. And when I was 20, just turned 21, we had some gigs coming up that were really big, man, and like big, like a couple of hundred people playing with other bands, and getting into the uni for the first time and stuff, which was big. If you get into the uni, you know what I mean, at the time, like, like, oh, like we're rocking now. And yeah, and yeah, picking up what I'm putting down. And oh, cocky is all fuck, man. Like like you get to that point, mate. And it's silly, but you do. And we had this the weekend before, it was a Saturday night. We all went to this party, and it was out at Bushland Beach, and we were all there together. And I got hammered, and we all did. Like it was a big party, as kids do and stuff. And I remember not feeling great this night, man. Like I was off, and we used to cruise around in this ute, and 2 cars, but one of them was a ute, And I remember going out by myself, man, having a cigarette and laying down in the back of this ute. And I remember being under a full moon, and I was by myself in the street, and I felt really strange, man. I didn't want to be at the party. I didn't want to be around anyone and stuff. And it was before mobile phones, and it was a strange feeling. And I just sat there for a long time, man, lost in my thoughts about music and what I wanted to do, and I wasn't sure, and just felt lost. And felt lost when I should have been feeling united with these guys, And anyway, I must have fallen asleep and come out the next, they've come out the next morning. We're going home. What the fuck happened to you last night? Like, I don't know, I just, it wasn't, into it. Went home, bit off, and the guys knew, like we were tight. And that Monday, they all rolled over. I was living with my uncle at the time. Mum had moved to Brisbane. And there's a whole other story in between that, but we're just on the music phase. And and they said, come on, man, there's something wrong with you. Let's go and play. And I was like, yeah, all right. And, man, we went to our jam space, which was in this youth hall. Oh, man, it's what the center of Townsville is now. But when I was growing up, the center of Townsville was, man, it was bad. Like it was, there's people passed out on streets, vomiting blood, like it, it's one of the worst places you could have imagined back in like 93, 94, 95, 6 period. And if you could grow up there and not get a punch in the mouth, man, you could go anywhere and not get a punch in the mouth, And we had the best jam ever. It's amazing. all these songs came together. It was magic. It was fucking magic. It was the first time in my life that I had that musical boom, you know, like just wow, like, and we all were buzzing. And I came and we left and hyped as hell, man. And I got back to my uncle's and we all walked in there all G'd up. And my uncle Stephen met us at the door and just said, "You three go." And I was like, "Oh fuck, what have I done?" You know, I'm thinking, have I left fucking, you know, have I left a bag of weed out? Have I fucking done something? You know, I didn't know what was going on. I'm fucking natural pump, man, you know. And Stephen just boom. And these other dudes like were like, what? And he's like, "Get the fuck out. You got to go now. Fuck off. You'll understand later. Leigh, sit down inside." And I was like, "Whoa, okay, this is heavy." So anyway, I walked inside, and that was the night that I'd found out that my father had died 4 nights before, when I was feeling off and sitting by myself in the back of the ute. And I don't know, there was some energy, and at the time, that's I think looking back on it, because I've had a lot of reflection time in the last 18 months, 2 years, that was probably the first time I recognized that there was energy between people and oneness, as it would be called now, but I wasn't able to articulate it at the time. I didn't know, you know, I knew Dad was going through something, but I didn't understand the link or what was happening, you know. And that was a heavy night. And the next day, the dudes came back and they were like, "Stephen," you know, and Stephen's like, "No, it's cool, man, take him, you know, like he needs to get out." And we went back to the jam space and we stayed there, man, for like, fuck, all day, most of the night, and just played and played and played, man. And the singing stopped being singing and it became like screaming, wailing, like howling, and release. And in that way, we transformed into something new as musicians. So from that point on, I always associated music with a release for me. People that used to see us live, if they saw us, I used to always be wet, like there were buckets of water poured on me, and, you know, like just from energy. And same with the other guys. We always used to like, and it was energy, not so much bouncing and jumping and that, but just a lot of, you know, talking into it, like, you know, like just like on stage, count-ins, just lots of stuff. And all energy based, man, and a great release. And I did that for many years. And when we all decided to go our different paths for different reasons, you know, everyone has their own path at different points, you know, it was a real sense of loss. So I had to put it into something else. And at that stage, Susan, whose name came up before, Susan and I were partners for 15 years, and it was pretty early on when everything sort of split up for a bit with the band and that. And I think I turned my energy to other music, but I started to come back to drawing, and I started to have those moments of like, you know what, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to just, and I was just drawing shit, man. I wasn't even drawing anything specific, you know, like I was trying to draw a Norm Brayfogle Batman, or I was trying to draw, you know, like Todd McFarlane Spider-Man. I was just fit. So it was there. It was starting to come back, you know. I was drawing Ghost Rider, like Texera and stuff, you know. It was all coming back to me, and I started reading comics again, but still playing music. And the music was important, but the comic books started to filter back in, and the artwork, so they sort of became incorporated again. And I'd given up on sport at the time, and yeah, and just creativity was the thing that got me through that. And creativity, that is not the only time in my life that creativity has got me through. And would say probably some of the best people I've ever met and greatest moments were in those dark spaces playing music with those dudes, man, you know, and the camaraderie with them still to this day. We may not talk to each other for a few years, but you know what I mean? Like when we speak to each other, there's no loss. It's like, you know, what does he want with me? You know what I mean? Like it's like, oh yeah, you know, like bang bang bang, and you know, talk, and like it's whatever they need I'll give, and you know, like vice versa. So it was really special, man, period. So yeah, music's very important, and it still is to this day for me. I can, you know, songs bring me back to things, and good, bad, particularly Pearl Jam. You know what I mean? Like there's more music that I listen to than Pearl Jam, but there's something about, you know what I'm talking about. There's something about that fucker Vedder, man, that can just like strike you, you know, with different songs and things like that, man. So, you know, like, yeah, music's been hugely important, mate, still to this day. So, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I had a whole heap of follow-ups, but I also don't want to, like, you know, I don't want to keep piling it on because, you know, we got heavy, so let's get light and we'll get heavy again.
You hit me with whatever you want, Spedsy.
Well, all right. Well, we're just two mates talking.
Yeah.
Because it's funny when you said you sat outside the gig and something felt off. And I thought you were telling the story about how the band went away. And I was like, holy shit, because, you know, my band, same thing. I had to go outside and I sat on a bench and I felt weird. And then a couple of sentences later, I realized you've told me that story. You know, holy shit, you know, it's not like my story at all. Although, yeah, I mean, and it's not, but my bench moment of feeling off, it was actually my dad who uncharacteristically, well, not really, but like he would come to shows and it was late, so he would then bail the moment our last chord hit. He would always do this thing where he came up and he shook the drummer's hand. He fucking loved the drummer in my band, and then in my brother's band. I think he just loved drummers, but he'd always go, "Oh, excellent show," to the drummer. But yeah, he came out and he sat next to me and he was just quiet for a minute. And then he was like, what's going on? And I thought that's where we're going, but obviously not. Yeah, I feel like you might be the same. There's a misconception, I think, when you play music and you're in a band and you think we're good, you know, that you want to be famous. And I think it's much the same as telling stories in comic books. You just want people to you want to be able to create more, so you seek these opportunities. And in music, you want to be able to play shows to people who want to listen. It's not the fame you're after. It's I don't know. Is it douchey to say people appreciating your art or something?
Yeah.
Am I making a point somewhere in there?
It, man. You know, like, yeah. I look. I think we'd both be fibbing if we said there wasn't thoughts of, you know, oh, you know, we could go somewhere. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, absolutely.
You know, you know, there is that, and you do have those things. But at the end of the day, to agree with what you're saying, like much like, you know, you get a comic book out and it's beautiful, but the beauty of it is in the creation when you're by yourself and you're doing it. Same with music. It's lovely to play in front of other people so other people can, you know, wow, they put some work into those songs, are great. But there's a certain thing that happens between a couple of blokes, you know, like, or, you know, members. I don't want to just single out, you know, like, you know, men from women and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That there's a magic in that too, man. And probably some of the best creativity you're doing is actually not in front of anyone else. It's not because you're shy. It's just because there's just, you know, you would have had those jam songs that are 2.5 minutes that suddenly become 20, and you're just sitting there looking at each other. I'm like, the fuck is that? Wow.
Like, are we the best band ever?
Yeah, like wow, like my old man. So no, I've never really. I don't think maybe when I was younger. I don't know, man. I've had an ego. You got it. Fucking hell, have I had an ego? So I can't say I never have, but I think there's I think you need an ego to have drive, to want to do something. When your ego is bad, it's when it eclipses any consideration or any thought, compassion or kindness for anyone within your spectrum. Do you know what I mean? Like your friends, I don't have to listen to that. I know what I'm doing. I'm top shit, like that. When you start getting to that, fuck, man, you need to come down a peg real fucking quick, because it's all going to go tits up, if you want to carry on like that. And to a certain extent, like when I was younger, I was very lucky to have Susan, who was someone that would fucking kindly, like, always pull your head in. My uncle Stephen, who was like my dad, really, was another one that was just like, oi, you're being a dickhead, man, like reel it in. So as I've gotten older, I mean, everyone out there's seen that, man, when I was drinking and stuff, I used to have an ego at different times, like for sure, and sometimes very fucking obnoxious, but I do I very, very often question my intent now as to what my actions are, or why I say things to people. Like I think on things a lot. I'm wrong, like a lot of the times, everyone's wrong, but I do question my intent. Like I'm not out to like deliberately hurt people or anything, you know what I mean? So even doing Chinwag, man, like once a week before the shows, you know what I mean? I always like, am I doing this for the right reasons, man? Like I like to keep myself grounded, like to a certain extent. But I also understand that to get to the we, you got to have a little bit of me, you know what I mean? Like, so that's I try and keep ego in check. So yeah, I'm with you, man, about the creativity and pull your head in, Leigh. Thank you, Susan. I've heard that before many times over the years.
Susan has another quite interesting comment that we will be getting to for sure. No, I guess funnily enough, I filled in for you on the episode with Tim McEwen, and he blew my mind somewhere in the 3/4 mark of the show, saying that sometimes as creatives we want permission to create, and I feel like when I say you were saying, I think in a band we're sort of like, we could do something with this. Totally agree, but I think the fame is like was permission, was a permission that I was seeking to remove work commitments and things like that. Like I never wanted to walk down the street and have people going trying to touch me like Justin Bieber. I just wanted to be able to play music not in support of bands, not playing to someone else's audience, but going to play to a full house, people there to see you, and not the art you have created. Lots of things I want to touch on. Alcoholism has come up once or twice.
Yeah.
And it's something I am quite ignorant about. My mum, I think, my mum and dad, there's some craziness, but my dad in particular, very level-headed. And I have that for the most part. And particularly in my 20s, I'd loved to get drunk all the time. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, binge drinking like you wouldn't believe. But there was something in a couple of my friends where they had a switch that flicked, where they would lose control and whatever, I would just think that I was way funnier. So I would tell 5 times as many jokes. I would perhaps get a bit braver to talk to ladies or whatever. And even at my most drunkest, I was still quite aware. And as I got older, binge drinking like that was affecting my creating on the following days, because I'm getting older and it was getting harder to just fucking get over a hangover. And so I started having to question, if I really want to get ... done on Saturday, I can't really be drinking on Friday. And so as much as some of my buddies even still will be like, oh, you're a soft cock, why aren't you drinking beers? And it's like, oh, because I want to draw sluggish tomorrow,
toxic masculinity, mate, eh?
Yeah. So I don't want to you give us the history on everything, but my main question was how did it feel? How does it feel creating with that monkey on your back and then creating with that monkey off your back?
I was very well aware when I was younger that my dad and family had alcoholism in them, because the time that I was with Dad, he was sober, and he was a good dad. And when he fell off the wagon, that was it. Like, Mum packed me out, and I didn't understand why the sudden change, but she just said, you have to trust me here. You know what I mean? Like, let's rock and roll. And fuck, mate, over the next 3 or 4 years, I saw someone that I saw as the highest echelon of man, your father, just, man, fuck, unreal, mate. Like, and I was very well aware of it. And he died, and about a month later, my grandma died, and my dog died, all in the space of about 3.5, 4 weeks. And I grew up in a family where I don't blame them for this, but it was just the times. And when I'd cry, members of your family would be like, stop it or I'll give you something to cry about. So you'd bottle it. And when you'd be laughing, people would say, shut up, I don't need to hear you laughing, because I've got a pretty wild laugh, and I dealt with a lot of that. And so I never communicated much. I remember friends in bands also used to say at times, I never used to drink. Like, I'm pretty sure, like occasionally, like yourself on weekends and that, but there was a lot of no, when Susan and I first started going out when I was younger, and there were good times, but there wasn't, and I didn't communicate. And I think I was about 24 and our dog passed away, and I was really close to this dog. Fuck, man, it shattered me. And suddenly, like, everything just started flooding out, and I started drinking. And I had a lid on it, and I didn't. And I went through periods of sobriety, and I didn't. And I was smoking a lot of pot as well, so I'd measure it in between. I'll just stay on, you just dumb shit, not knowing how to communicate, just being, just fucking growing up in a really strict Catholic family, as you're aware. They have some pretty strict rules about you can't talk about that unless you go to confession. Okay, well, I want to go to confession. No, we'll go in a couple of months. Oh, fuck. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, fuck, like, I don't get it, man. Like, and your brain's just overworking as a kid and overthinking. And I couldn't articulate, man. I just wasn't emotionally mature enough to understand. I didn't have people I could talk to about this. Everyone that I had in my life at the time were all very similar type people that, fucking just didn't talk. And slowly over the time, just drinking became something where I found I could start talking with and communicating and being comfortable with people, and and then it just continued on over the years, and that played a massive role in Susan and my breakdown. It was my drinking. 100%. I'm fucking 100% to blame for that. I just fucked, man. I couldn't stop. I didn't know how to. Like, I don't have a drinking problem. I can deal with it. I'd have periods off, man, like 2-3 months, 6 weeks, a month. But then when I came back, dude, it was like fucking 2 cartons of beer in one day. You know what I mean? Just pummel, like, see you later. And I used to draw, and I felt comfort in drawing, but I could never be where I wanted to be drawing. And I knew I had to stop drinking, but I was playing in bands, and there's all that toxic masculinity, and like, fuck, everywhere you went was drinking, and if you're not drinking, there's something wrong with you, and you give in to peer pressure, and you want to stop, but to stop, I'd have to pull away from my friends, because that was what our whole bond was, and I couldn't do it because I needed them, because I'd lost heaps and I didn't want to lose more. And that's something I've realized in the last 18 months is something that I've had to work on in myself, and I'm still not good at it, is losing people through death or leaving or suicide, lots of things, and I have a healthier way of dealing with it now, but I didn't always, and it did intrude immensely on my artwork, and I fucking hate myself for it, because I could have been better. All of that time, it takes a lot of time to be a drunk Spedsy. You know what I mean? Like, so much time wasted, man, when it could have been so much better spent, like doing something productive, being a better partner, being a better fucking person, mate. You know what I mean? Just treating people better, having more self-awareness, not fucking up and like, fuck it, I'm going to go and have 20 beers, I'll forget about it tomorrow. You know what I mean? Yeah, it wasn't cool. Something I'm deeply ashamed about, but that's my life. That's what it is. I talk about it openly because I can't tell other people what to do. I don't want to control anyone's thoughts or how they live their life. That's something I definitely don't want to do. But if I can put myself out there and let someone, what I'm talking about is not directed at anyone specifically, but if something that I'm talking about may trigger something in their mind, or maybe give them a little bit of a buzz of like, fuck, I do a bit too much of that, or I think about that, you know what I mean? Like, I would gently challenge anyone that has those thoughts to, what are your intentions? Like, why? There's something lurking there. There's a reason why you're hiding it, like, and that's and the scariest thing to do is to go within and try and work out what the fucking damage is, because we all overlook it, and there was always something in me, like I still am damaged, but better ways of dealing with it. There's better coping mechanisms. If you feel like you have a drinking problem but you don't want to announce it to the world, try giving yourself 28 days without drinking. That, just give yourself 4 weeks off. See how you go with 4 weeks. You'll know the answer after that. You know what I mean? Like, that's all I'd say to people. But I'm not a preacher about it. I can tell you that it's sobriety now where I am is something I will never turn my back on. There's no fucking way that I will ever go back to drinking, man. Like, no way. If I find myself in an uncomfortable position where, you know, obviously I can't stop people from drinking and, you know, doing drugs and those sorts of things. But if I find myself in an uncomfortable position, I am more than happy to stand up and walk out and leave. I don't have to give an explanation, man. You know what I mean? And that's just what I've sort of gotten to in terms of the creative side of things. I think it became really apparent to me when issue 4 of Battle for Bustle was coming out in 2021, and fucking shit was bad and bad. I was had bad relationships with people. I just wasn't handling myself right in scenarios and shit, and I would say I've never. Here we go. I was drinking probably 20 beers a day and working full time. That was just on, you know, that was during my working week, smoking like probably 5-6 joints a day, passing out, getting up, going to work, you know, barely living, man. How the fuck are you expected to feel or know who you are like that? You know, at the time, it was just a horrible cycle. Just things that I had to deal with. I was in situations that I now realize I didn't want to be in, but I was in, and I couldn't get a way out, and it was fucked because I couldn't communicate how I felt. Like, just cycles, man, awful cycles, you know. And I just kept digging that hole deeper, and for myself. And I thank the person who assisted me with issue 4. For many reasons, I do thank them, because it never would have happened, because I don't remember doing any of the artwork. It's there, you know, like it's there, and it's a printed comic book, and it's there. I have no fucking idea what I was thinking. I had ideas going through my head that made no fucking sense, that to me, in the theaters of my mind, were like, fucking yeah, you know what I mean? Like, woo, you know, like, yeah. But in reality, it was like, fucking what, mate? You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing, idiot? You know, and just redrawing pages. Like, I've got fucking, man, it's like a 28-page comic book, man. There must be like 60 fucking pages drawn. You know, like you're not, fuck, you know, like that ain't normal, I don't think. It's amazing that lived, that comic book. So that was at the worst point. And yeah, just, I was really bad with, I think you and I think I'd fucking ripped you about something that, you know, like, and, you know, like that was awful. And, you know, there's a lot of things I regret, man, and regret's not cool. Just things I could have handled better.
Yeah, well, I mean, the man himself said it best. You can't spend your time alone redigesting past regrets. What?
Yeah, indeed. And
I mean, creatively, yeah.
Yeah, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say you are where you're meant to be creatively. I lament, you know, I spent my 30s sad and depressed and unable to reconcile that I gave my 20s to music, and everyone said that my band was the next big thing and all this cool stuff happened, and then it just sort of went away, and so I settled. So I thought, well, I'll do it. All my friends who stopped coming to shows 9 years ago because they settled down to start families, I thought, well, I've always wanted to be a dad. I'll start a family, and then that didn't happen for 10 years of trying. And I think about it now, and I just go, man, I could have done so much stuff. I could the leaps that my art took from Devil's Toilet 1. Had I done Devil's Toilet 1 when I was 30 instead of 40, I could be, but and Ricky Gervais's career didn't take off till he's 35, and I'm like, I'm 32, and I'm like, all right, I've still got a couple of years, and then now Morgan Freeman's career didn't take off till he was 54, so that's my next. I've still got time to be Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
But you can't spend your time alone redigesting past regrets. It doesn't get you anywhere. Life is what's happening while you're busy worrying about this stuff.
Well, one of my teachings, man, was like when you go through school, or you've got authoritarian figures in your life that are like, you need to know what you're doing by this time, and if you're not got your shit together by 25, like you're this or that, you're a loser. If you're not together by like 35 or have kids in a house, I realize one of the things that I have regrets, but they're things that I've had to put to bed, mate, because I wouldn't have gotten on this path where I am now if it hadn't have been for all of those things. And deep down within myself, I'm able, I can talk about it. Like I'm comfortable with that, to talk about these things. And you are where you're meant to be, and there's no right or wrong time. There's no right or wrong age, I think, looking at myself, because without any of, fuck, mate, if I would have diverged 1 degree when I was 26, I never would have met you. If I diverged 0.5% of a degree, or if I hadn't have had those 2 extra beers one fucking Saturday night, you know what I mean? Like, the universe, I never would have met Shane, and vice versa with, Gary Challoner and Ryan Vella, and so many people who have like become such a fucking integral part of my life, now. And so I have to leave. That's right, George. You are, mate. You where you're meant to be. And sometimes whatever angst or anger you have, man, if you don't fucking curb, if you don't reel that shit in, it becomes bitterness, man. And that's fucking poison. And that poisons everyone around you. And that's where I was before I stopped drinking. I was at that poison phase, man. I was toxic to fucking be around, man, like 100%. There were bits of me that were there that would shine through, like, the majority of the time it wasn't any, I was walking around like a fucking zombie, mate, I was nothing. So that showed in my art for sure. Because a lot of the Battle for Bustle issue 1, 2, and 3 was done from 2009 through to about 2013, when I was in not a bad headspace, you know what I mean? So that's what I mean, man. I fucked around so much drinking. Dude, I was seriously, I would ride it Saturday and get some beers. I just got to ink one panel. I got all day. All fucking day, man. I'd still be here at 9:30 at night fucking plastered, man, ripped off me. That panel wouldn't be drawn. That panel would be sitting there 2 weeks later, man. Do you know what I mean? It's like that's the stuff that I don't enjoy looking back on, because much like yourself, with where I am now, like I'm by far not a great artist. I think I've found my voice, and I can definitely improve. I draw every day, man, with the aim of improving like that. And but like yourself, man, if I would have been doing it at 30, where could I be now? But it's the journey, man. It's just what it is. And I find that you know, I can talk to people about it. People ask me questions about it. I think the best way to be is honest about it. I'm not sitting there, like firing off crackers, like, yeah, man, this is what you want to do. You know what I mean? Like, I hope that people recognize the fact that it's not a good way to live. A lot of sacrifice that comes with drinking. But it is what it is. So, yeah, I don't lament on it, man, to be honest with you. It's just, I guess we're talking about it now. And I wanted to, on this Chinwag, be as honest and authentic as I could be, because people come on this show and they're very honest about things with me and the audience that listen to it, and I wanted to let them know I was aware of that as well. So I want to talk about these things. So whether it puts me in a good light or a bad light, this is my life. So it's just where we're at, bud.
Yeah. As you know, I was very nervous coming into this show because I, and you put me at ease, but that's what we do. We do right by you, do right by this thing that you've created, and well, there's a big question I want to get to, but I wanted to share something, and it tied into some things you were saying, and now it's kind of, especially with this huge disclaimer, I've separated enough that now it's going to make it sound like Spedsy sharing some trauma, whatever. But a big thing that helped me deal with regrets, and even still, because I'm a big regretter, and I spend way too much time thinking about the past and things I could have done differently. I have a name tattooed on my arm. I don't think I've ever mentioned this. If I have, forgive me. But this is one of the best people I've ever known. It was the 16-year-old son of my best friend who passed away. And he was the most charismatic, kindest soul you've ever met. And he had such a light in him that he was one of those, and his dad too, but he took all the best bits of his, as you hope for your kids, took the best bit of his mum and the best bit of his dad. This like, and then to just sit there and have these regrets about, oh, you spent your 30s sad, and then I just go, like, perspective much, you know what I mean? Like, just, it's a fucking privilege to be around this long, to have all these fucking whatevers. But you touched on something. Now, this is my big pickles question. So brace for it, and feel free, for those who are tuning in late, you may know pickles is the safe word of just like, yeah, no, I don't want to talk about it. It's not that big a deal. I don't know, but I'm just very curious, and I've just always wondered it. And as a fan of your work and as a friend of yours, I have diagnosed you with something that I've made up, but that you are two things. I am the same two things, but mine I have reconciled and use one to help the other as best I can. At times, particularly years ago, and I feel like yours were at odds. You are a very serious artist, and you are a larrikin. And sometimes I get the impression, or have gotten the impression, that those two don't necessarily like each other. That the serious artist wishes this guy wouldn't joke around so much. And this guy, the jokester, sometimes wishes this guy wasn't so fucking serious. Am I speaking any sort of something that makes sense? Or am I way off?
You are speaking truth. Yes, that's something I've had to reconcile and try to. I do find difficulty with it because I think that anyone that knows me knows that I've got a fairly dark side, you know, like, and can very easily slip into it. And not dark as in violent or anything, just, you know, darkness, things, you know, people live in shadow, mate. You know what I mean? And it's like I have a lot of that from everything I've been through, and, you know, like mental illnesses and things that I've had to sort out myself through varying experiences that have left me traumatized. But at the same time, I try and take that darkness out on my artwork. That is probably why people would suggest, like, I get a lot of, why is your artwork so violent? Why do you know, like, why are you doing, you know, like, it's really ultra violent and stuff? And because that is a part of me that needs to come out, and my drawing is my creative release, and it helps me with what I battle. The larrikin in me is something that I'm hoping comes forward more and more as I push on through this journey at the moment. I think people are probably seeing the larrikin, and I think you might be. It's nice that you touched on this, actually, dude, because this does ring true with the mindset I'm in at the moment. Everything of mine was black and white and grey shade, and I think that gives you a pretty good idea of where I was as a human being at the time I do a lot of this artwork. All right, deep inside, lots of thought, processing, etc. I think people are starting to see now that there's some color starting to come out into my artwork. I'm starting to put out, like, more painting images and bringing brightness up and incorporating color into the black and white. And I've had a strange realization that I can't separate the two. And I think I've realized that because when you go through the sort of trauma that I went through, you know, over the last couple of years, there's, you know, for all, you know, it's a cliche, but people hear the shadow work. You got to fucking play with your shadow and shit like that. And fuck, mate, you got to get a wrangle on that motherfucker. You will never lose it, but you have to absorb it. You have to recognize that there's this person in you that is insanely fucking subconsciously not good. And you have to realize that there is this other part, the duality of the person, man. And you have to find a happy medium. And I think what I'm seeing in my artwork at the moment is I'm starting to, with these practices that I'm doing, like my meditations, my spiritual work, like my studies and shit like that, being more truthful, being more open about things. The larrikin is starting to incorporate into that serious side of things. They can coexist 100%. It's balance. Like, everything is, it's another cliche of when you fucking go on this journey and people say everything's connected, man. Everything is connected. There's so many words that are cliche, like balance. Balance is fucking everything. It doesn't matter whether you're eating healthy, smoking too many cigarettes, fucking running too much, whatever. Everything is balance, man. Balance, symmetry, mind, body, spirit. Like with me, my main voice is my artwork. And I mean, you've read the new issue that's going to be out of Battle for Bustle, and I know a handful of other people have. And there's a fairly big divergence in what it was previously to incorporate a lot of my beliefs now. That I think, man, I think the larrikin's starting to win, Spedsy, and I like the larrikin. You know what I mean? Like, I like the light me, the child me, the fun me, and I think I lost that because I allowed too many other people to dictate terms to me, and I did things to keep other people happy, and I reneged on what my path was and what was right by me. Again, lessons, hence the dream that I've told you about, that I've had twice, in terms of the word resonance, and not understanding it the first time, but understanding it completely about a week ago. And I am what I am. And I'm aware of both sides, but I would like the larrikin and the happy me to come forward more than the dark, like, because I feel like I'm in a really good place, man, at the moment. Like, I know I'm talking about the past, and we both are, but I don't. Yeah, there's regrets, as we said. You can't live there, but you can learn. I've fucking learned one thing: I don't want to go back. You know what I mean? It's too fucking hard to get here to repair from that. So that's why I put such an emphasis on those foundational things of me, man, which is the sobriety, which is my meditation, spirituality, creativity, like my vegetarian beliefs, and kindness and love and compassion, man. Like, I think if I can stay to that area and question my intent, like, I think the larrikin will come more and more, man. I didn't do like, my paintings were my color, and my drawings were black and white. And then as I got better at inking, and you've seen like the new rosy pages and stuff like that, the textures, and I'm starting to paint more, and I'm starting to think more like I'm painting with my inking and stuff. And then everything's just sort of, as I'm broadening my thought processes and shit, and I'm like just sponging as much creativity as I can, man, and like releasing things, but also having time while I'm doing that to process things and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's all coming together, man. And I hope when I'm an old man and I'm sitting down with you, mate, somewhere, and we're having a cup of tea and shit, the larrikin will be in full swing, and the darkness will be quite happily sat, in comfort, and it's there, but like, it's I hope I articulated that okay, man.
Yeah, well, a few things. I mean, you can be serious without being dark, and you can be funny without being silly. I think my wife was riding a bike just recently. My kids just got off training wheels, so we've been riding as a family, and I've been enjoying it. The kids have been enjoying it. My wife hated it, and she said this to someone who was watching her ride, and they said, "You're holding on too tight. Your grip on the handlebars. Loosen your grip, and you'll find it's a much more pleasant ride." And I just like, not that it's the most poetic sentence, but suddenly, the creative brain that we have, I'm just like, loosening your grip on something, suddenly you enjoy that thing, like taking it perhaps a little less serious. This is not advice to you, because segue, I think the larrikin and the serious side in you, this is something I wish I had have asked you, or maybe not wish, I wanted to ask you a couple of years ago, but there was never really like the time or the place, and I didn't know what the response would be. and perhaps it's a testament to where you are now, that I feel like this is a curly question, but I think he particularly, you know what my intents are now, and all that sort of stuff. So it's just out of curiosity and just as a fan, whatever. But this show is where I think your serious side and the larrikin coexist and make for good viewing. Because I was saying to someone just a little while ago that I like watching something that has feels in it, but I don't like going there knowing there's going to be feels, because I don't want to. There's enough feels in life. I don't want to feel stuff. I'll almost watch an Adam Sandler movie rather than whatever the latest Oscar thing is, because it's not going to be particularly hilarious. It's not going to be particularly heavy. It's just, whatever. So I like the feels to sneak up on me, because it turns out I do love them. I just don't like to seek them out. And on this show, I think you balance you keep things kind of light, you let it get heavy, and then you bring it back to the light again. And perhaps this show is partly responsible for your larrikin and your more serious artist side. And I don't mean dark side. I just mean the same reason I wanted people to read Rosie, because I knew there was a segment of people who knew me as the Devil's Toilet guy, and I wanted to show that I'm not just poop jokes. I feel like I'm a good writer. I feel like I'm a serious artist who just makes an idiot of himself on the internet. And anyway, so this show, I think, is where your two talents have coexisted. Now, on this show, I want to talk about it a little bit. I do, one of my pet peeves is podcasts that talk about the podcast. But this is an interesting journey of yours, because I don't know whether you knew it when a few of us started saying it, but not just me, but like I heard, I think I told you this. I was literally at a convention and I heard two people talking about Chinwag and saying how good you are at hosting this show, with no knowledge of me and my connection to you, even that I was sitting there. They were just comic people talking about this thing that happens in comics. In our little, comics is a niche. Australian comics is a niche within a niche. So there's not much like this sort of thing where people get a platform to be taken seriously. And you did me a huge favor, because on the Comics Network for a time there, Drink and Draw was kind of an hour-long interview, which, for some creators was not their forte. And so it was a struggle to get an hour out of somebody. Or also there was a lot of nonsense going on sometimes on Drink and Draw. And so I felt people the creator sort of segments, they didn't get to kind of delve into the more serious. I tried my best, but once Chinwag came along, I felt like, alrighty, that's the sister show to Drink and Draw. That takes that serious bit, we can put it over there. Now Drink and Draw can be totally silly. And I think like Drink and Draw, but more so here, you're creating a time capsule, a snapshot of comics right now. And to an extent, comics of the last sort of 20, 30 years. But this will be a very handy resource, I think, in the future. Should one of us make big and something has gone, what else was going on at the time when Nick May was just coming up, or whatever the case may be. Speaking of intentions and all that sort of stuff, tell us just a little bit about this whole thing.
Chinwag's a bit of an enigma, man. But thank you very much for the kind words, mate. Chinwag has become, a very very important in my life.
It should be noted, just to derail you, we have been sitting at a higher viewer number all night than the majority of drink and draw shows. Just if that's a feather in your cap, because I know you have referred to Drink and Draw as the mother show or something like that. And I'm looking at that little viewer number, and it's gone down one, up two, down one, up two. Like it's anyway. People are watching.
Yeah.
So there's some pressure for you.
That's okay.
But also,
well, hello. Or when we were doing Drink and Draw, and we, like, I remember like Drink and Draw started, and we started really enjoying ourselves. No pressure. No pressure at all, mate. Like it's all, I'm talking to my mate here, and all my mates out there. Thank you for listening. I hope I'm not horrifying any of you. When we started Drink and Draw, and we were all becoming really close and mates and stuff, and all, becoming a little band, you know what I mean? Like the ComX crew, like and I had noticed that at the time, and it hadn't even occurred to me. It was just a thought in my mind, like I think there was a show. Oh, look, I can't even, I honestly don't remember who the particular person was, but we got really excited because at one point, like we all started thinking, hey, I remember us having a group yarn after the show, and we were like, what if we could get like a Gary Challoner or a Glenn Lumsden on here, or a Mark Sexton or a Tim McEwen, like we were all like, nah, fuck, they'd never come on this show. We were all like, come on, we should try, like we all got G'd up, and then suddenly it's like, like you and Sis were putting like the invites out. Suddenly we turn up on Friday night, and there's fucking Glenn Lumsden, and there's Gary Challoner, and because you got so many people on the screen, you doing like, man, like and you're like, because you showed me fucking courage, mate, because that first show we were sitting around like, and someone wrote in like, you guys got to talk, you got to say something, and you just fucking stepped up, man, and just boom, here's Spedsy, got to keep it rolling. And I remember that first night going, yeah, fuck yeah, man. Do you know what I mean? Respect, and so I was like, I could never do that, like, because I was so far out of like being in bands at the time, and like drinking too much, real lack of self-confidence, and like I've been through a lot of ranges of emotions and things, but like I was really taken aback by just how you grabbed the bull by the horns that night, man. And I remember when we got to the bigger dudes that I remember, you were doing your best to ask them questions, but then everyone else was firing questions in, and things would diverge, and you couldn't get an answer, and it was going like fucking all over the shop. And it was around then I started thinking like, man, I wonder what it'd be like doing a one-on-one, like with someone. And then, but in my mind I was like, oh, no one's going to want to fucking listen to me talk to someone. Maybe I could talk to see if Spedsy wanted to do it. And I remember I rung you one day, and I was still drinking at the time. And I said, Spedsy, like thinking of, what about this idea? And you were like, fuck, yeah, sounds okay, but there's a lot of work in that. Got to get guests, got to follow things up, And as you get more and more drunk, you're like, yeah, fuck that. That's a lot of work. Yeah. And you're like, nah, like nah, and so then I got sober at the time of, like when Rosie came out and everything, and I had a few months off to, because I wasn't drawing, because I was suffering some pretty bad DTs and some bad, mislevels. Wasn't drawing, and you guys invited me on for my first drink and draw after like, fuck, I don't know, man, like 6 months or something. And I was like, really like, wow, okay, no worries. And I found myself nervous, but chatting more than I had normally and like really clear and stuff. And then I just came back to that idea. And I started thinking about, you know, like me, and I wanted to meet 6 people. I wanted to have a one-on-one with you. I wanted Ryan Valla, Ben Sullivan. I wanted to give a shout out and bring Gary Della on because he was the man that, you know, like fucking put Battle for Bustle, you know, like out. I wanted to meet like Gary Chalker at that stage because like, fuck man, I'd known him since like, you know, in comic book form since I was a kid. And, you know, and fuck, who was this? There's somebody else was in there too at the time. There's been like 50, and forgive me. It was pretty early. Oh, and Peter Lane, who I'd been taken back by Sky's Cavern Library at the time. And thanks, bud, for being part of it. And I just remembered that, yeah, Sky's Cavern Library had really like, fuck, that's a really original concept. I like that. It stuck. I want to meet that dude. So that was my 6. And I talked to Shane about it. And Shane was like, mate, you want to have a go? Let's have a go. You know, and I was like, okay. So this idea rattled around for about 6 or 7 weeks, right? And then I was talking to Valla about it. And Vala's like, yeah, I'll do it. Yep. Yeah, I'll let you know when the iPad's working. You know, she fucks up all the time. I'm like, yeah, no worries. So 4 weeks went by, and I was driving home. Tuesday Chinwag popped into my head, and it was only going to be called like Tuesday Gas Bag, Tuesday, you know, like Tuesday Yarn, and you know, there's a couple of things, but Tuesday Chinwag just sort of like was the one where I went, yeah, that's the one. And I spoke to Shane, and Shane was like, yeah, mate, we can do that. Then Peter Wilson just jumped on and did a banner and things like that. And everything just sort of like started coming together. And I was about 6, 7 months sober at this stage, I guess, you know what I mean? And like starting to feel okay, man, you know, like I was starting to come okay. You know, things were still, you know, just I was feeling all right. And it was a Friday afternoon. And I said to Ryan, oh, you know, I should do this Chinwag. And Ryan's like, yeah, Tuesday. And I was like, what? He's like, I got the iPad. It's up and working Tuesday. I can have it done Tuesday. I'm like, Ryan, it's Friday. He's like, yeah, fuck that. Tuesday. Now, never, man. Like, you know what Ryan's like. I'm like, oh, okay. So I said to Shane, like, Tuesday for Chinwag. And he's like, yeah, man, done. Look, bang. And then I remember sitting there that first Tuesday Chinwag, man. I had no fucking idea what was going on. I'd never done anything like that before. And, okay. You know, like, let's give it a go. The first one done. And then Peter, second one done. And third one. And I started getting a bit more comfortable with it. And I started realizing, like, how fucking cool is this, man, to, like, meet all these like-minded people. Like, I'm not King Kong up here in North Queensland, you know, like, I'm not in an echo chamber. Like, you know, there's these people I admire that I'm getting to talk to and things, you know. And then I got through 6 and I was like, whoa, fuck, okay. And then I might go for 8, you know what I mean? I tried 8 and then suddenly it's like, okay, no worry. And then it just slowly built up. And I don't watch any of the shows back. Like, the only one I've ever watched back was when I came back. I think I did 12 episodes and came back like 3 months later. Excuse me, because I needed a little break and shit was going on. And I came back and it was Nick May. We'd done a Nick May one previously and I couldn't remember. You're a natural what, I don't know, but it's what you are. Thank you, Nick. Probably a natural pain in the ass, mate, but, you know, as long as but thank you. And I watched the Nick May one and I remembered, okay, do this. And just slowly over time, I've just shaped it, man, to fit in where I can, what I can do, what I'm, you know, like, because I'm learning on the fly here too, man, you know, and I'm feeling much more confident with it. Again, there comes an element, like tonight's a little different because, you know, for me because I'm guest, and I don't like to talk about myself heaps when there's other guests. I prefer to allow them to open up, and if there's a moment, save the space for them, or be quiet with them, or respect that moment, listen, prompt them, like if it lulls. And I'm learning. I think what you said before about Chinwag has been hugely healing for me, because where I didn't speak before and I held a lot of emotions in and things like that, and I only put it onto paper and artwork and things, I'm learning to be vulnerable with people, and I'm learning to respect people's opinions and listen to people, and love differences in people, and see a beauty in people's stories. And I find the stories supremely motivating, because we're all creators and stuff, but the most important story that you're creating is your own. And I just feel really privileged, man, that these people come on and talk with me for hours, man. You know what I mean, about things. And I'm more privileged than what people and grateful and honored than what, and humbled than what people would realize. Like, it's inspired me, particularly over the last 2.5 years, to keep going. I would say without Chinwag, I wouldn't be about ready to release my first solo comic in like 3 years. I wouldn't have been able to communicate with people so that I could improve my own relationships with people. Like, I've had an example, Susan and I hadn't spoken to Susan for 10 years, just through, and just being able to recommunicate, and the confidence to, like, I need to iron some shit out here. You know what I mean? Like, and there's other people, like, my relationships with people are better. It's been a rocky road. Like, don't get me wrong, I've had to do a lot of recalibrating and things. It's been very rocky, man, emotional roller coaster the last 2.5 years. But Chinwag's been essential for me, and I'm really glad that you've noticed that both of those sides come together. I think it's definitely helped me heal, and with that, I get the pleasure and honor of allowing people to tell their stories, man, and it keeps me going. As I hope the people that are guests, that for the people that are listening, they can hear what the people that as guests have gone through themselves, and they get a fuck yeah, you know what I mean? Look what that dude did, or that creator did to, like, to push on, and the shit they went through, like, and fuck, Australian comics is important to me, man. Like, I've been reading this shit since I was a kid, and it's like, it was so hard to find anything about Australian comic book creators in Townsville, you know what I mean, before the internet and stuff. I didn't know who any of these people were other than names in comic books, or a random, like, newspaper write-up, or just, like, it was so barren, the information, and to, like, be able to, comics, without Shane and Kerry, like, fuck, Chinwag wouldn't exist, like, and the faith that those two have put in me, because fucking hell, wow, man, I've put some people through some shit over the last 2.5 years, and yeah, it ain't been easy for me or for them. So yeah, no, I'm very grateful for Chinwag, man.
Yeah. in some way, and this is more probably me trying to, well, a few things. Nick May's episode is still the most watched Chinwag of all the Chinwags, and you're boosting his numbers again tonight, which, for some of us who have been on a few Chinwags to not even be in the top 5, it's like, bro. But yeah, something, and this is more a me problem and a drink and draw problem. But I guess it's I just want it said, because we do stuff for comics and for Sis and whatever, and sometimes people think the comics shop is just for comic studio comics and whatever, and we try our hardest to stress that no, it's like all Australian comics are welcome. And particularly on Drink and Draw, people think, well, one or two people have been heard to think that it's just, a handful of us rotating and stuff. And it's important to stress that, like, this is not for everybody being on these things and doing these things. And for the amount of people you do see on Drink and Draw and on Chinwag, there's been almost 3 times as many people invited. There are whole sections of the comic community that we are trying to include and whatever, but creators as a generalization, as a stereotype, whatever, we're solitary figures that sit in our dimly lit rooms and draw comic books and whatever. So I guess that's why when things like this show and whatever, it's I don't know that it's a gift for the gab thing, but it's you and I just are able to do this, and so we felt we should do this. Like back in the day when it was You Guys Need to Talk, I had a local radio show back in my early 20s. I had a podcast in my late 20s, and we did 80 episodes or something. Like, I'm not really a stranger to this sort of thing, and so it took a little bit of not like guts as in like, more so I was worried what everyone else would think, I worried that people would think I was trying to steal the limelight, whereas what I was doing was I thought I can sort of see what this could be if someone just sort of took the reins, and if no one else wants to do it, I'll do it. And I think, I don't know that I could do that. One time I did some one-on-one videos for the first Vamoose that came out, and I did a 15-minute interview with Peter Wilson, where I told him how good his comic Radical was, which, for those who don't know, that's Ed Kearsley's comic. Fortunately, it wasn't live. I was able to edit the title of the book out and put a Crimson and Rascal, and I thought Crimson and Radical. I don't know what I thought. I had a bunch of other things to tag onto, but I can't remember all of them. And I think it's long past time that we've celebrated the 50 episodes. Now, obviously, something else big is coming up. And talk of Susan, and what we're now going to touch on. This comment came in earlier. Remember the Bustle City in the spare bedroom? Now, I'm going to ask you what that is, because there's a picture in my head. No spare bed for 12 months. I have good memories of your creations. What a brilliant mind you have. If anyone deserves it all, you do. Now, Bustle City. Now, there's 2 versions. If someone had a gun to my head and said, what is it? I would say it's a version of your granny flat with the pages on the wall. What I want it to be is cardboard buildings that you've built and little cutouts of where characters are going to be and plotted your story. Okay, please tell me about Bustle City. Of course, we're about to start talking about the comic book that I'm sure everybody watching knows about, Battle for Bustle. So tell us about Bustle City, the real life version.
When Bustle came into fruition, I was very heavy into, I loved film. and I could see a real symmetry between comic book storyboarding, filming, that sort of stuff. And I've always loved filming shit. You know, like you can see with even the cover, and you know, like I film the covers and things like that with lights and set things up. I've just always had a thing for it, you know. And I just had this crazy idea that I just wanted to practice filming. So I don't know, like Susan would be able to tell you. Yeah, there's some around, Neil. I'll dig them up and stick them on the internet for you in the next couple of days, mate. And yeah, there was a whole spare bedroom, about half the size of the granny flat. And I built giant city, like buildings, each one different, out of cardboard, Legos, any materials I could find. I had bridges going across them. I had lights hanging off the roof. I was building clay statues to mount them as gargoyles and things on these buildings. I painted the buildings. Each one had different brick structure and textures and things. I even went out and bought cars and made cars and like colored them and retrofitted them and put them on these like bridges and streets and shit. And I was filming them in fucking stop motion to try and like fucking show movement and things like that. And yeah, this thing was huge. And I don't know, I spent months building this thing. And I put it all together. I had people in windows and stuff, and I'd had the spare bed was, say, you know, 3 feet high. I had the strata scrapers up on that, and I was building far out, right? I'll try my best. No promise, I'll try. Susan may have them, actually. There you go. And I was building the maze underneath it. And in my mind, as I was doing this, bustle was coming together, and I was starting to create things in 3D, not just drawing, you know. And I started taking, like, man, and I was down on the ground with cameras, setting up people and taking photos with lights behind them, and and cellophane windows and things, and cutting out windows to look like, and different cellophane so they look like church windows. And this city, like, I mean, I'm probably making it sound more extravagant than what it is, but so much work went into that. And so many of those photos, believe it or not, actually became the work of the cityscapes in Battle for Bustle. And I think that city stood for well over 12 months. And like, people used to actually come over and sit in the city and have beers and stuff, just sitting in amongst like these big buildings that I'd made. And there are a few people that came over for the first time, and they were like, "You got to fucking see our mate, you know, Leigh's fucking city." And they're like, "Fucking what?" You know, like, they're like, "Fucking man, this dude built a city." And oh, the fuck must be mad, like, fucking hell. And they come over and they go, "Oh yeah, I only came for the city. Where's this city?" And I'm like, open this door to the spare. Fucking hell, like, there was shit on walls and everything, man. Yeah, I'd go in there and film and like fucking, oh dude, yeah, man. Like they were it was full if I want to do something, I'll do it. And drinking stopped me from that, because I slowed down, and that's the thing I regret, because it's like, man, if I put my mind to something and I'm fucking like, bang, I'm doing it. Like, I will get it done. I can tell you, anyone that knows me will know I will get it done. It may take longer than I said it will, but you can bet your ass, in some make, shape, or form, it will be done. Yeah, they were good times, man. You know, like sitting in there doing that stuff. We'd fucking night times, you know, with lights and shit set up, and yeah, no, it was great, man. You know, they were really good times. I hadn't thought about that in a long time, so thank you, Susan. But that was the genesis of at that stage I'd fucking read all of Dune, all of David Eddings, the Belgariad, the Lord of the Rings and stuff again, Raymond D. Feist's books. I was fucking reading the Gunslinger series. I was falling deeply in love with Jack London at that stage. One of my favorite books still to this day is a Jack London book called The Star Rover. And at the same time, I was like fucking falling in love through Dad, but later after he passed back with History, and Bustle was taking place. And fucking, you know what's really weird? I'll show you what's really weird now that we're talking about this. Bustle was done in 3 versions. And so Bustle is about 4,500 years of history, right? And I've got it all. I'll show you how many. So that's one Battle for Bustle folder, right? That's it, all laid out, all comics. That's the Bible. So that's one. And then there's the next part, which is all of this shit, all character designs, all drawings, the first Hanson, and all these things are all in there. And these drawings go back to 1996. So this is how long it started gestating. And then there's this one. And this was, you know, this is more. This is like all the scripts from like 1998, 97. This is the original artwork when I was just doing it stream of conscious and character designs and stuff. And there I found today, like this is the Bustle series that you guys are reading now. This is it, all laid out, like all the panel work and everything's all here, and I just change it like to fit where I'm at now. But that's the entire comic in folders. And then I did find this, which was around the time of the city being built. And where is that sucker? Bear with me because it's here. I found the original comic books today, which are I don't know, they were here, but anyway.
Well, with all that planning, so you were nice enough to send me Battle for Bustle 5, which I have read and enjoyed. Yeah. 2 things just on the that world building stuff there. So I often preach. I'm not anti world building by any stretch. I love world building, but without a character to latch onto, all of that is kind of I have the attention span of a freaking moth. If the light's not on, I'm barely flying. I don't know what this analogy is, but so sometimes when a book or a comic starts with the third moon of Osiris rises in the west, and it's just like fucking just tell the story of the person. Something you do expertly in Battle for Bustle 5, and then no spoilers here because I think there's a big reveal. Now, the attention span of a moth, I haven't read the first 4 issues in a little while. There's something like around page 13 or so. I went, what? Holy shit, is so-and-so, but that's for after the show for people to read. But yeah, the first page, there's a little bit of catch up of like the bad guys are kind of giving us their sort of modus operandi, and then just when I could feel my moth starting to go, then suddenly we're with Christopher, the main character, and he is in a very real position, and we're with him, and you feel him, and it's kind of exactly what I want. Just that right amount of world building, and almost right to, you took me right to the oh, just give me a, and there he was. There was our hero, for lack of a more nuanced word. And then we followed him, and then we're off and running. One thing that did stick out to me, particularly in some of the advertising, but a particular word or sentence saying that was in the book, "My mind is my fortress." Now, for a time, you had talked about a separate project, "My mind is my fortress."
Yeah.
With those binders of years and years of planning, somehow you've obviously still allowed some room for fluidity to take this story where you've set something up in your teens and 20s and whatever, but now in your 40s, you're taking the story, you're injecting elements of real life. Well, and you've probably always been doing this, but I guess I have a little bit of more insight now to your real life, so I'm seeing it. Has that always been there since issue 1? The real life's creeping in?
Yeah, it has, but more so now. And that's to do with the question you asked before, if my sobriety has increased my creativity and got me to where I need to be. It was always my intention. Battle for Bustle started, I never intended on doing a comic book. I don't know if I'd ever thought about doing a comic book, but when my dad died, I found that I had this really strange, I kept driving around to the places that he and I used to frequent, and I started drawing splash pages, and that comic exists. Like, it exists. I've got the splash pages over there. It could be printed tomorrow. And it was called Drive, and it was about a son lamenting, I guess, the places that his father took him, and then that was going to be my, here you go, Dad, like I did one for you, and then as I fell in love with all of these things, and I built my city, and I had a lot of friends that I was getting encouragement from, and I don't know, man, I just started drawing more. It just all comes back to the music, and I was in a fully creative period, and my mind is my fortress is actually the first words in Battle for Bustle issue 1, and I wrote that many years ago. I don't know where I got that from, because Spedsy, it all ties into like where I'm at now in a spiritual sense, man, because I was never able to articulate it before the last maybe 12 months, man, what this spirituality thing was, but I'd always had it. I grew up in a strict Catholic family, but I wasn't picking up the religion thing, I didn't have you walk into church and there's a dude being stabbed, there's a dude being hung, there's a dude fucking hanging off a wall. You're like, fucking what? Fuck, whoa, so that iconography was with me, and I get it. I know that people find something in that, but for me, I just wasn't getting it, but with respect, I know that there's people out there that find something in it. But I was always a little bit more, I love animals, I love birds, I love energy, going with my gut feelings, like just going with flow, and things. And I never could articulate it, because being in a Catholic family, you're sort of like, oh, don't be silly, like, go to church, blah, blah, blah. And I got muddled up, and it's always been there. And Battle for Bustle came about because of my love for world building, and it also came about from one instance. And I've said this before a long time ago. I used to work at a major supermarket many years ago, and I was one of the kids that used to, on a Saturday, get the yellow paper, like the pay packet, here's your money, sign off and go. And then they introduced a finger scanning thing where it read your fucking, and timed in and that sort of stuff. And I remember, bang, I was like 17, and I was like, fuck, we're just turning into a machine, like at that point. And then years later, when I was doing Drive and I was reading all these books, I kept coming back to that. Like, and then I was becoming more socially aware, and I was seeing hierarchies and classes and things like that. And then back at the time, I didn't want to talk to people about it because there was no one else I could really talk to about it. But these things were in my mind, you know what I mean? Like, fuck, seeing a real difference in you know, like when you work in a supermarket and shit, you can see like homeless people coming in for an apple, but right next to them is a judge, you know what I mean? Like buying an apple as well. And it's like just this incorporation of people there for the one resource that they both need, that, you know, like fucking within a second they're separate and they go to their highs and their lows. And like my mind was always sort of like wandering, you know, like in these sorts of fashions. I remember having a conversation with my dad when he was alive once, and saying to him when I was young, like, so if I'm here with you and I'm in Gulliver with you, and that's in Townsville, and that's in Queensland, and Queensland's in Australia, and Australia's in the Pacific, and you know, like Australia's in the world, and Earth's in the solar system, da da da. What's the universe in? Is it in like, but you know, like I was always thinking things like that, you know, and so I guess it just.
What was his answer?
At the time, I think he just dragged on his cigarette, man, and just let me wander. He used to just let me talk and wander with my thoughts, you know. And so he gave me space to allow those thoughts. There was nothing. I could always have thoughts. He was very free like that in terms of if I had questions and things, like he would just allow me to decipher the answers and gently nudge me in ways. And I found that the people who have taught me the best at times when I've needed them have never done it forcefully. They've just nudged me, you know what I mean? Like, or let me find my way. And I love those people because they get me. And coming back to, I incorporated bustle was my version of what I was seeing in the world, with the classes and a big cityscape. Also, though, at that stage, heavily influenced by dystopian shit. Like I was well into like RoboCop, Judge Dredd, fucking The Crow, you know what I mean? Like that, you know, there's a whole heap of that sort of stuff, like Terminator, which you've never seen, but we won't hold that against you, you know, like inside joke. Yeah. And but just so I had all of that, and then I had to, I didn't feel brave enough to be able to sit down and just do something on what my concerns were. So I incorporated into science fiction, and then science fiction brought Bustle, it was called, and then Bustle started off as a stream of conscious comic book of all my things. And I didn't have a script, and I was just drawing. I did like 60 pages, just all stream of consciousness, man, over the course of a year. And then it started forming, and then I went back and did it again, and it formed again. And then I was like, fuck, this idea is growing, and it keeps growing, and it's stuck with me ever since. And it's like, and then I just got the opportunity maybe in 2010, 11, and I thought, I'm going to have a real good crack at this. So I incorporated what I knew then and how I was living and what my mind was as, like I say, a 27, 28-year-old man, how I could articulate it. And I started doing it that way. And then it was based on Dad. So the main character was called Christopher Goodfellow at the time, which changed to Christopher Battle, because the title of the comic book couldn't be Bustle. It needed to be something a bit more punchy, you know. And Battle for Bustle, that's his last name, but it's also the battle for the city. And like my mind was going this way and all incorporating. And fuck, I was just flowing. And I was in a real free state at this point, man. And I'm, weirdly enough, I'm back in that state now, and with everything that's happening. And fuck, I started like, you know, I'm not a huge fan of authoritarianism. I don't like fucking, you know, like people telling you can't do things and pull your head in. And fuck, like I'd hate like not having freedom of expression. I just fucking hate it. It annoys me. Everyone should be able to do what they want to do as long as they're not hurting people and they're happy and it's done from a place of love. That's what it should be allowed. But no, everyone tries to stamp you underfoot with, you need to do it this way, you need to do it that way. Well, fuck you, I'm doing it my way. But anyway, I digress. I'll get back on it. And it became autobiographical in the sense of, you know, there was a father and a mother and a son that were stripped away from each other due to a stupid fucking thing that the father did, which was my dad coming home drunk that night. So I started incorporating all of these life things into that. And then I started bringing in other characters as I got more like creative, you know. And I start, whoa, this is getting fucking big now. Like, holy fuck, this has gone from like 40 pages. This could be really big. And then I was really humming and I was feeling good. A few things happen. You sort of lose confidence in yourself due to the ebbs and flows of life and work and drinking and relationship breakdowns, and then other things happening, and, you know, people stealing your time and shit like that. And once I got through issue 4 and I got sober not long after that, I realized there are a lot of things happened because I'm not going to go into the sadness of and the horror of my relationship breakdown with Tamara, but I wanted basically all the bullshit aside into one small piece. I wanted to remain sober and she wanted to drink. And that's a very difficult position to put yourself in. And I tried and I tried and I tried to see it her way, and it didn't work out. And when it got to a point of like, I can't go any further with this, I'm not going to drink, you know, like, and it was a breakdown and it was an awful thing. And lots of things happened that I won't go into because they're private and just for family and friends and stuff, but it changed me more in a fucking radical sense to a certain extent. I realized there was more to me than what I'd shown people. And Tamara, obviously, as life goes on, Tamara got a new partner. You know, it's life. That's okay. And he approached me about, fuck you, man. I'm taking the rights to Battle for Bustle off you because Tamara did the lettering on a couple of pages and shit, a couple of issues, more or less, in a nutshell. And I put so much into Battle for Bustle that I was like, fuck, I'll burn that before you take it. You know what I mean? So my whole everything just shut down, away, don't want to know about it. Went through hell myself that I'd put 25 years into this. How the fuck could, you know, like, why would you take someone's creative work? You know, I still don't understand that. Maybe it was a shot, you know, like fucking at me, or maybe it felt like, I don't know. I never asked, you know, like I just, and I let it sit. And I was really lucky at the time that you and Ben and Ryan and I had been pushing on with Rosie, and so I threw everything into Ring Around the Rosie, which fuck, man, like still magic to me. And it taught me so many lessons working with Ben and Ryan, seeing how you write, how you work with people. And I hadn't worked with people before since a band. At that point, I'd just been solo, you know what I mean? And you get caught up in your ways. And seeing, do you remember that when I did the first 8 pages pencils, and then Ben accidentally did the first page, and I was just like, what the fuck? Like, how did that dude get that out of that script? I don't, what? Like, and boom, and my whole mind just went, whoa, I got to get my shit in order, man. You know what I mean? Like, fucking, I'm like half-assing this, you know? And then it just kicked me into gear slowly. And then through a series of events, studying, talking to, you know, I don't want to name drop, but amongst many people in the community, and I'm sure he's been very integral to a lot of people in the community, without like Gary Chalker, you know, helping me. along the way in varying degrees, I wouldn't have this new issue coming. And then after we did Ring Around the Rosie and shit, you know, my cousin and just lots of things just again, I needed something, man. I just needed something. And I'd always been interested, again, the spiritual thing and meditation, and that had always interested me. But each meditation I tried wasn't the one I needed, because not every meditation and spiritual path is the right one for people. They're like shoes, you know, like you get lots of shoes, but you got to get the right one that fits you. And I'd always had an interest in transcendental meditation from even like 20 years earlier. And it was around the time that Susan and I had, you know, we needed to clear stuff up from many years ago. And I just happened to be talking to her about it one day, and she said, had you ever gone and done that transcendental meditation course that you wanted to do like 20 years ago? Have you ever followed that up? And I said, like, no, I never have. I've never found anywhere to do it. I've tried. It's just not working. And then Susan being Susan, the next day goes, fuck, mate, bang, here you go. Like, there's one up in Cairns. And I was like, okay. So I rang this dude in Cairns. It was all tied into how Bustle comes together and where you're talking about. And they're like, oh, I'm in Brisbane. I can't get there. Rah, rah. So the next day I get this text message from this lady. She's like, hi, I'm Valerie. I'm teaching this. I'm in Cairns next week on holiday, but I invite you to come up and, you know, like, I'll teach you. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah, no worries, like that. This is my address. Be there. Fucking okay, Mum. Come and look after the dogs. I'm off. Boom, man. I went on this journey by myself up to Cairns, no idea where I was going, and spent 3 of the most beautiful days with these 2 ladies, and changed my life at that point. And suddenly all this PTSD and trauma that I'd suffered from the last 12 months had like started to evaporate, and all of this creativity had started to push forward, and then I started to get into this flow state. And then I was starting to think, hang on a minute, battle for Bustle. And my mind is my fortress is something that will be created, because I didn't get broken, but I nearly did. And that's where the mental health story that is so integral comes into it. And I just started drawing again. I started picking up steam. And then I was painting, and drawing, and then I was doing this. And then the story came to me, and then I incorporated my life and how all of these like new functionalities of how I'd found my way again and myself could be incorporated into the comic without diverging it. And then the one thing that blew me out last year is on my 46th birthday, I became older than my dad. So therefore, like, that just totally fucking blew my mind. And because I'd been doing this comic book for 20 odd years for my dad, to now not even be finished the comic book because of fucking drugs and alcohol and shit. And then he's now passed, and then I recognize, like, hang on a minute, this isn't his story anymore. It's my fucking story. So now I've incorporated myself as the main character. So I sort of had a reboot, and then it's growing and growing and even more. And then I didn't quite know how to take it over the line. And someone I'd always admired, because there's you and me and Ryan and Ben on the Ring Around the Rosie stuff, and I'd over time grown a friendship with Peter Wilson and a great appreciation of his work and his sensibilities and his gentleness, and how he could get a point across without cracking skulls. And this comes back to the best teachers that I have, are those sort of people. And I'm darkness, as you said, and he is light with his colors and how he deals with things and his sense of humor and so many things. And so strange you spoke about that earlier, Spedsy, because it's all like it all fucking connected. And I knew he was the dude for me, because I needed that fucking color to fucking bash the black and white and bring it into some sort of accessibility for people, you know, because I think the first four were like real in depth and dark, and you know, like dark, you know, like where this one is not, you know, like this one's not. It's different, you know, and then yeah, just having a relationship with Peter in a creative way was really magical. And fucking, we talked about things in like not structurally, but like fuck man, get like it needs to be more like water, it needs to be like wind and shit. And then suddenly the next day he's giving me pages and he's like, how's that? And I'm like, fucking yeah, you know, like this is the man, you know, like, and it's just progressed. And it's been a long journey, man, to get so I've left. The first four issues will never be printed again, because I need to close that part of my life due to varying reasons, which I've only briefly touched on. Those four issues will be available to people because, as we were talking about the comic shop before, comics is an important piece of work for Australian comic books, man, and creators and such. And when you buy a comic book with ComX in July and that, I'm just going to say it now, Shane and I will get it happening, we spoke about it, to encourage people to buy comic books. Even if you want to buy one or you want to buy two, you're just going to get the 4 PDFs of Battle for Bustle, absolutely free. And that's just because I don't want them never to see the light of day. But because of what I went through, I have to close that door. So I don't want any money for it. That is behind me now. And you can just have them. That's what we're going to do. So when you get issue 5, it will be volume 2, issue 1. And if you've never read the first 4 issues, you don't necessarily have to, because I think you'll, like Spedsy will say, you can pick up on this issue as if you'd never read the previous 4. But you'll get the PDFs of issue 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I've realized how important, like, people, community is for me. So I guess I'd like to be able to give back to anyone that has a comic book that, you know, wants to sell it. And if that's something that helps them, then if that gets you over the line to get your comic book out so you can feel good, do it. So yeah.
we give Sis, rightfully so, a lot of credit for the community and whatnot. But I think his right-hand man in all of that is the guy who coined the phrase "community is unity." It was almost a throwaway joke line, but it kind of became your mantra. And you know, perhaps we're not all in each other's pockets still if it wasn't for you beating that drum so early on. Now, there's obviously. Firstly, we should do a just to for the moment close the Battle for Bustle chapter of the show. We will show off the cover and do a cheap plug, if you will. So this is the upcoming cover for Volume 2, Issue 1 of Battle for Bustle. As Leigh says, you don't necessarily have to have read the previous issues. There's a somewhat of a, you know, a previously on Survivor type thing in the inside cover, which gives you any information you may need. But otherwise, you're sort of hitting the ground running with this dude Christopher. And I mean, anyone who's familiar with your artwork knows that many fine liners died to make that issue. So out of respect for them, I think, are we talking, was it July I saw on the adverts? Or is it? Yeah. So July this year, I guess, keep your eyes peeled. I mean, it will be all over the places to look at. Now, something I've been hanging to say is this. Now, Leigh, as we begin to wind down the show, mate.
Yeah.
This can be a 2-second answer, or it can be lengthy. It's up to you. But firstly, for those who are, there will be a select few who are like, "Well, keep going. There's so much more to touch on." Well, we have to save some stuff for episode 100. Is my thoughts. So we can always come back. There's so much more to pull from this man's brain. But one of the big questions, I mean, really, it's as big as the guest interprets it, but I found it to be a hard one that really had me thinking. Once I saw the first handful of episodes before mine, I wanted to take the question seriously and then answer it as best I could. I don't know that I did a great job because I still don't really know the answer. But of I feel like we did the who. Obviously, we did the what, the where, the when, even some of the how. Then the big one is why.
I often ask myself that, Spedsy. I had a breakdown maybe a week ago, and questioned everything. Why am I fucking sitting in this granny flat? Why am I doing this stuff? Like, everything in your brain goes into negatives, with self-doubt and shit. Like, why am I doing it? The sacrifice, because this comic book is as well as other things, has sacrificed a fucking lot, man, for me. Relationships, friendships, like fucking, mental health, like lots of things, man, have gone into this. But sometimes you do have to switch your perspective, as you said before. And I'm not good at everything, but I'm good at some things. And I think I'm a pretty good storyteller. I've got a long way to go. It's something I'm passionate about. It's something that has been there with me. I've lost a lot of people in my life. I've lost a lot of stuff. But the one thing that's been a constant from when I first saw my granddad's drawings was paper and pen. And I always felt a comfort in it, whether it was bad times, good times. Man, if I wasn't publishing comic books, I'd probably still be sitting here drawing. So, I mean, you got to look at things from that. But for me, it's a little bit different with people because, as you asked before about Chinwag's become something that I never envisioned it would become. I hope it does continue on. I mean, I want to invite as many people on here as possible. If I don't know you, I really don't know you. I'm not omitting you. I'm not reaching out to you. Like, I'm not that way. I want you on the show. If you want to be on the show, please let myself, Spedsy, Sis, know, and you can be on. Like, there's no no's. You know what I mean? Like, it's a yes. All right. Like, this is what
I've got enough no's for all of us.
That, yeah. Well, I'm not saying.
Anyway, sorry.
I haven't turned side on to show you mine, mate. But anyway,
there's a reason why I sit at this angle. But anyway,
yeah.
Sorry,
I'm just chuckling. So I was going to say something, and I thought, like, no, don't.
I've made a real point of, like, so my brain, I have the drink and draw brain of just like joke of different things you were saying, and apologies to those who have thought. I've had my listening face on, but it's a bit of a resting bitch face, but that's my listening face, but also suppressing jokes face, but as we start to wind down the show, mate, I'm starting to get a little bit I don't know, my jokes per minute counter needs a tick along.
Yeah, that's cool. That's all right, mate. That's you, and that's exactly what you should be, is you.
Just while I've already derailed you, just to bring us straight back to Sirius. One thing I think, and you know this, but it's important. I mean, everybody is weird, and I promise you, every single person is weird. We're just varying degrees of weird and different weirds. A friend I was just like, everyone's weird except for my mate Doug. And then Doug did something weird, like 25 years into knowing him, and I was like, "What the fuck?" Like, like, I thought you were the one regular person on this planet. But also the doubting yourself, questioning yourself, the breakdown you had last week. As much as you are special, you are not special in as much as you're not alone in those things. I think, and I only know from a creative perspective and fellow creators I talk to, but I think we all sometimes, particularly as the years go on and we're still doing this, you find yourself going, the why becomes a like a sort of Damocles almost. You start that's why the why of the show was daunting, because that was my larrikin and serious guy. I wanted to take that question seriously, and then I was taking it almost too seriously pre-show and scaring myself because I don't know why, and I've been chasing dreams so long that I'm scared of catching it because I don't know who I am if I achieve my goals. If I've always just moved goalposts my whole life with different. I wanted to play a show. We played a show. I wanted to headline a show. We headlined a show. It meant nothing. I want to sell out this place. We did that. But it just kept moving, and I can see that still happening. And as much as I know it logically, I still find myself the wondering why. But back to you. I derailed you so far from where you were. In that time, have you found any semblance of?
Mate, I just I think at the end of the day, it's just I found my people. You know, I found like-minded people. Sometimes we don't agree, sometimes we agree. That's the creative process. That's humanity. We've had our disagreements, our ups and downs. We've always managed to put the bullshit and our egos aside because we all have an appreciation for each other. We're all empathic towards each other and understand that, know that life's not smooth for some people. There's a respect, there's a voice, you know, like in what we're all doing. I think that our intentions are good. I'm fucking proud of what we all do. And I want more people to be part of the community because it's not a fucking competition, man. And you know, I do have pet peeves that I won't go into now, but sometimes I think just stop thinking and just do, because we're not good at everything, but sometimes there's some things you're good at. And you just got to keep doing them. And sometimes it doesn't give you money. Sometimes it doesn't it isn't what you wanted in your mind's eye. Sometimes life will throw you a curveball and shit like that. But the one thing I've learned, man, and I can tell you that one thing that I will always belt on about in Chinwags, and I've been doing it more and more after discovering more of myself, and I say this wholeheartedly without a word of a fucking lie, creativity has saved my life to the point where if it hadn't have been for these things, I can tell you I wouldn't be here. If it hadn't have been for those gentle teachers, I wouldn't be here. And sometimes what some people consider success is different to everyone. You know, some people want a house, some people want a horse. It's what you know, or a dog. It's what you want.
Some people
And I
want
think
it.
people, you know, I think people should stop like having expectations and comparing themselves to other people. Everyone's unique. Everyone like, man, you know, when I was, I don't think I've given you enough credit either, mate. Like, we started at exactly the same time. Our comic books came out at exactly the same time. That our comic books were on the back covers of each other's as ads, you know. And Shane started at the same time, and Kerry with ComX, you know. And you're a jovial person, but you, much like myself, have a darker side, and we both suffer imposter syndrome, and you know, we're not good enough, but we try and do our best because, you know, we just try. And one of the comic books, mate, without blowing smoke up your ass, that I read in the last couple of years, it hit me at a right time, and I gave me 100% strength to do this whole reboot and me. Battle for Bustle in my own way was Sluggish, and I read that and I thought that was like, fuck, that's brave, you know. Um, and that's probably why, because I got people like you, people like Ben Sullivan, Vela, gently pushing, and it's like, fuck, you know, like, I want to be as good as them, you know. I want to work hard. I want to fucking tell stories, and yeah, that's why. So it is a community thing, and it's respect for everyone I've met. I don't, you know, it's yeah, it's got me through. So got me through to this point. So I don't really plan on stopping. So at this point, but I'll do things at my pace. I'm not going to rush things because balance is important in life too, you know. So, you know, just find your pace, find what you want, find your lane, find your voice, and dig in. So,
Well, for all your, you know, that we learned about tonight, your trials, your tribulations, your mistakes, your regrets, whatever, you've done good, you're doing good, and you will continue to do good if you, just go easy on yourself and just do what you do, because there's definitely only one of my questions early on, which I didn't get to, was, can you name a single artist that does art anywhere near? For me, I can. Now I'm damn near going to get you to answer the question, but don't. but I quickly go for myself. Peter Wilson, Nick May, Dean Rankin. Like, we all play in the same vein. Like, you could argue Ryan Vella is nearish you, but I'm more. I think you have a style so I can recognize almost all my peers' artwork, but yours, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. Ryan Vella rivals you in detail and RIP fine liners, but your styles are vastly different. I've never seen anything like it, and I think therefore only you can do it. So keep doing it, for whatever that's worth from this guy.
thank you, mate.
But yeah, I want to thank you. Thank you for letting, you know, I said, as long as we get, this was something I said to Nick May, as long as we get to 45 minutes, that's kind of an episode. We got to over 2 hours and 45 minutes. So I think we touched on some good stuff. I just wanted to thank and also apologize to some people whose comments I didn't put up. It was only because I just didn't want to derail some stories that were going on, because I mean, yeah, you know how it is. You're knee deep in a story, but just a shout out to a few of these people. Kerry, good on you, Leigh, for sharing your story. Great interview, Spedsy. Thank you so much, Kerry.
Thank you, Kerry.
Awesome cover from Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
Leigh, thank you for being so present in the moment. Such a wonderful Chinwag episode. Brilliant stuff, guys, from Peter Lane. You youngsters have so much wisdom. Thanks for sharing so much. No deadlines from Sis.
Yeah.
And Freak Productions, Pair of Legends right there. Thanks so much, Jesse. That's awesome. What was I going to say? Something. Gentlemen, thank you. Yeah, well, I believe that has been our show. Please do, if you could like and subscribe, that would help greatly. Chinwag, I like to think would have found its way either way, but it doesn't exist without Comex, Shane and Kerry literally paying for it. So yeah, if you could hit like and subscribe, all of that helps us get to a future goal of perhaps making this channel monetized. Because we have the content. We just we need some more eyeballs, and that's from subscribers. So yeah, if you could share with some like-minded individuals, that would help. Thank you, Leigh. Thank you, me. Just because it rhymes. Yeah, is that our show? Did I
mate, just one thing is to every person that's been on Chinwag, thank you. Shane and Kerry, thank you. Yeah, and we'll just continue. But please like and subscribe, as Spedsy said, because and anyone that's out there and had an interview with Chinwag, use it as you wish. Share, put it out there. If you know people that you think would like to have a Chinwag, send them our way. All are welcome. It's a green light, so please reach out. And yeah, it's been a real pleasure. And yeah, it's pretty amazing. Yeah, I didn't think we'd get to 50. But Spedsy, thank you, man.
No, pleasure.
Thank you for sharing now with me, and always being there, mate. So yeah, I hold you in very high regard, my friend.
All right. Well, same. So thank you very much. All right. Thank you, everybody. And thank you for sticking with us. Like I talked about those numbers, people stayed with us from the start to the end. So very, very, very appreciated. Thank you very much. All right. Thanks, Leigh. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you down the road.
This show is sponsored by the Comex Shop. Check out comex.cx for all things